Okay, so this is exercise 5.2 inside of chapter 5. This is on page 68 of the Albright text. In this particular exercise, we're going back to the one we just did, 5.1. We obtained a unit price and quantity sold from input boxes. Now, let's see, and then we calculated the revenue and displayed a message. Now it says you should understand that the last part of this message, the actual revenue, requires string concatenation. Try expanding your program slightly. Save your results in a new file. Start by using an input box to get the product's name. Then use input boxes to get the product's unit price and the quantity sold. Include the product's name in the prompts for these inputs. For example, a prompt might be enter the unit price for LaserJet 1100. Next, calculate the revenue. Finally, display a message that contains all of the information, something like for the LaserJet 1100, the unit price is, the quantity sold is, and the revenue is. Do as much as you can on your own. If you need help, look at the file. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to save this file as a new file. We'll do input output 2. We'll make sure to save it as an XLSM macro enabled file. And we're going to use the previous code here and just change it up a bit. So we're still going to need a unit price. We're still going to need a quantity sold. We're also going to need a revenue. And what we also need is another variable called product. And how should we declare this? This is the name of the product. So we're going to want to make this a string type of variable. So there's our string. And let's go ahead and put in a comment here. Let's get inputs from user. That's our comment. The first one we need is a product, it said. So we'll do an input box, enter the product's name, and we'll title that input box product name. And then we're still going to have unit price for the product. But at this point in the message box, we're going to add the name. So enter the unit price, selling price for, and then we're going to close quote. We're going to do ampersand, space on both sides, product, space, ampersand, space, and then quote, period. So we have to do quotes around the period. And we're just concatenating strings, right? Here's one string, and then we're going to use the ampersand. Here's another string. We define this as a string here. And then here's the last string. Just one period is the string. We're putting those three strings together, and then we have the title here. That's going to be the unit price input box. After that, it says we're going to do a quantity sold input box. So we have quantity sold, we have input box. Let me go ahead and capitalize the E here. Enter the number of units sold for, we're also going to add the product. And I forgot to put a space. I don't know what that was for. I forgot to put a space after the 4 in my first unit price. So in that first string, I want to put a space after the word for because the product is not going to have a space in it before or after. After there's a period, so we don't need a space. But before the product name, we do need a space. So I'm going to put a space there as well as a space here. And I'm going to concatenate. There's my ampersand, and there's my product. So again, we've concatenated three strings in this input box, and that input box is going to include the name of the product that was put in up here in the first input box. Once we have those three inputs, we're going to calculate the revenue, and it's going to be the same revenue calculation as before, unit price times quantity sold. And then finally, we're going to report the results. I'll add another comment here. Message box, the revenue from this product was, what if we say something like, for the product ampersand space product space ampersand space quote comma. So I'm going to put a comma right after the product name. The unit price is, and I'm going to do a quote ampersand space. Then why don't I go ahead and do a underscore, and I can continue on the next line. And this is where I'm going to put the unit price. So I'm going to format that unit price as a currency. And we did this before. Whoops. I have to watch a little more careful maybe of my formatting. Ampersand, the space ampersand space after the unit price, and then I'm going to say the quantity sold is, with a space between is and quote, and then let me do the ampersand space underscore, and that'll take me to the next line. And here I'm going to do quantity sold as the quantity sold. And notice I'm just concatenating a very, very long message box, right? This is a very long string of strings, and I'm putting together all these strings together, making sure that each ampersand has a space before and after, making sure that the words are correct, making sure that I have the right spaces inside of the quotes and the commas. So at this point, I'm at the quantity sold is, and I'm presenting the quantity sold. And then we can talk about the revenue. And the revenue is, in fact, I'll just take this out. I'll use a space and we'll format the revenue. And I think we can leave the rest. It'll be a VB information type of message box with the title of revenue. And if I arrow down a couple of lines, sure enough, nothing is red. So that's a good sign. And we will run this. So I'll put my cursor inside the sub somewhere, already was, and I'll click on run. Enter the product's name. The example here in the book is LaserJet, but we could use any example. 1100. Enter the unit selling price for LaserJet 1100. So let's say, gosh, I don't even know what LaserJet costs. Laser's probably more expensive. Let's do, I don't know, 250. Enter the number of units sold. Oh man, we sold so many units. 1,000 units. So the message here is saying for the product LaserJet 1100, comma, the unit price is, and it's formatted as currency. Notice that the format here has 2 decimal places. This format for revenue has no decimal places, and there's an interesting difference there in how you format that. Comma space, the quantity sold is 1,000, comma space, and the revenue is 250,000, formatted without decimals with the period. That looks good. And that is our 5.2 exercise inside of Chapter 5.